All right, happy Thursday, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Monica. We're here with another amazing Q&A session, open Q&A session with my co-host Sahar.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Dr. Yam, Dr. Lorenz, I know you're busy, so I really appreciate you being here. That's for sure. Tell me more about your day, Dr. Yam. I know you said it's nice outside. Did you go outside today? Did that happen?
No, I didn't. Well, I did go outside just to pick up my kids before.
There you go.
Just before getting on here.
Perfect. How are you doing, Dr. Lorenz? Can you hear me, Dr. Lorenz?
Yeah, I'm doing real well. Thanks.
Thank you. So today we have a bunch of questions already from students, either applicants, pharmacy, either at UCSD, San Diego State, or out-of-state students. They have questions about APPEs, IPPEs, and what are they, what are the abbreviations, etc. We have about 10 questions, but since today's, we have a live open Q&A, please, if you're watching us right now, if you have any questions, leave those questions in the comment section below, and share it with your friends. That way they know we're live and we're here for you. I can start, if Sahar, if you don't mind. Okay, perfect. Our first question that we got was, what are APPEs, IPPEs, and are they required? I think it's a two-part question. And can students complete them outside of San Diego?
Dr. Lenz, you want to start with IPPEs?
Sure, I'll start with IPPEs. The abbreviation is IPPE. Some people actually call them IPPEs, and they are Introductory Pharmacy Practice Experiences. And we'll start those in the beginning of the P1 year, and they take place during P2 and also during P3 years. And for the most part, all of our IPPE experiences are in San Diego, in the greater San Diego area. We sometimes do have some experiences up in the LA Orange County area for IPPEs that occur over the summer. So we do have IPPEs in community pharmacy and also in hospital or institutional settings, as well as other types of experiences taking care of patients, including various types of health fairs. And right now our students are really busy vaccinating patients for COVID-19.
Thank you. So I'll go with APPEs. So APPEs stands for Advanced Pharmacy Practice Experiences, and these are required rotations that occur in the 4th year of pharmacy school. So you've completed 3 years of didactic curriculum, and then the final year of pharmacy school will be entering the clinical realm in some cases. In other cases, you'll be in elective rotations, which can vary from industry to research rotations. So these are rotations that are meant to basically allow you to apply all of the knowledge that you would have gained the first 3 years of school. And we have rotations in hospitals and ambulatory care, clinic settings, community pharmacies. Like I mentioned before, you have the option to do electives as well, 2 electives to be specific in our curriculum. There was another question there about whether or not they can be done outside San Diego. While most of our rotations are held in San Diego, we have a lot of great partner sites within the San Diego region. We do allow our students to go outside of San Diego if they find a rotation or a site that they are interested in as pursuing for an elective. That's something that we would certainly look into for the student, and we'll evaluate the site, and if it meets the requirements and has good learning objectives, then the student can submit and apply to complete that rotation as an elective. But core rotations, or what we consider required rotations, must be done in the state of California.
Thank you, Dr. Yam. I'm learning. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good.
All right, awesome. We have a question. It says, do you have any APPE sites in the Bay Area, North Cal? And if so, where in the Bay Area?
So we do have some, and many of these sites are ones where we've had prior relationships. So the ones that I can think off the top of my head are sites in at Stanford. We have a rotation that is available in Stanford every year. We also have some Kaiser sites that are available throughout the Bay Area and various locations throughout the Bay Area. Those are the two main ones I can think about. But others, as I've mentioned, other students have opted to go home and complete community pharmacy rotations. So those are ones that we often have as well in those areas, and that'll depend on where our students live and where they find housing. So we certainly entertain those types of rotations in those locations.
Thank you, Dr. Yam. We have one more question, and it's, do students get credit for IPPEs and APPEs? If so, is it pass, no pass? Can you talk a little bit about how the credits work for those courses?
Sure, I can address that with our IPPE curriculum. So that is also in a pass, no pass. There's no honors as there are for didactic classes. But we do have a pass, no pass. Our students are evaluated by their preceptors during the experience. And then also the students do also have an opportunity to provide evaluation feedback for the preceptor and for the site.
And for the APPEs, yes, the students do receive credit. They will have to enroll in each rotation as if it were a course, and the grading system is the same as the first P1 through P3 year, where it is a pass or no pass system.
Thank you very much. Question number 2 says, well, actually, we have another one. Yeah, there it is. What activities are students expected to perform? I think that applies to both.
Dr. Lorenz, you want to start?
Sure, I can start. So for the rotation experiences, first of all, we're required to have 300 hours for each student over those 3 years that I had mentioned before. And those are obviously, the first one I had mentioned, I think, was community pharmacy. And so our students are involved in basically a curriculum. Even though you're in a pharmacy, there's certain things that we have, certain domains that you have to accomplish while you're there. Also, they have to do a lot of those same things in the hospital or institutional setting. And then we also have the service learning experiences. And the service learning kind of varies a little bit by experience and site. It has to involve patient care or patient education. So like I said, a lot of our students are vaccinating, a lot of our are involved with health fairs. They're involved with educating parents. They're involved with school groups. We have students that talk about poison prevention, talk about asthma, hypertension. A lot of these different topics are covered in their service learning opportunities.
And for APPE, it's sort of a loaded question because there's so many different types of experiences that students can have in their 4th year. But one thing I want to communicate is that as a student entering your rotations, you are an intern pharmacist. So you are essentially allowed to perform the duties as long as you're of a pharmacist, as long as you're being supervised appropriately. And so those duties will vary depending on the setting that you're at. And I'll just go through a few examples. One of the required rotations in your 4th year is acute care medicine. And so in that rotation, a student would be expected to participate as part of a medical team where they may be rounding with patients, and they'll be required to review the patient's medication profiles, make appropriate recommendations, make recommendations for dosage adjustments, be a resource to the team if they have drug information questions. For another type of required rotation, ambulatory care, students will be required to interview patients, perform history and medication, and obtain medication histories, and make assessments on how to optimize a patient's care, and could be involved in making recommendations to prescribe new medicines if the pharmacist in that clinic has that scope of authority. In hospital rotations, students would be expected to perform many of the same functions as a pharmacist with appropriate supervision. They could be reviewing orders for appropriateness, making recommendations for dosage adjustments, They'll also learn about the medication use system, how medications reach patients in the hospital setting. In the community, the students will be expected to perform functions that are similar to the pharmacist with appropriate supervision. So those are our main required rotations. As far as all of the elective rotations are concerned, there's just so many different types where for the students' responsibilities will be dependent upon their preceptor and what their advisor is doing.
Thank you very much. We've got a question from one of my mentees. When it comes to doing your IPPEs over the summer, is it possible to do it back in your home state if you are an out-of-state student? Just to clarify. So that was the question.
Okay, so that's with regard to the IPPEs or introductory pharmacy practice experiences.
Correct.
So those have to be done locally, typically, like I said, in the San Diego area. We have to get what we call affiliation agreements. And so we have those with our partners here locally. And so out of state, the other issue is that you're not licensed typically in that other state, and we don't have relationships with those other sites. So we haven't had any of our students go out of state to do IPPEs. And like I said, typically it's just San Diego County. And we have a minimal number of sites that are available in the, basically kind of the Orange County area as well.
Thank you, Dr. Lawrence. Our next question is, can students waive their community retail IPPE hours if they worked in retail pharmacy prior?
Okay, that's a great question. So if you've worked in the past in a pharmacy, that's actually not considered to be a part of the curriculum. And so these are all curricular requirements that come from APPE, which is our accrediting body for schools of pharmacy. So everybody basically has to have the same experience, maybe not the exact same day by day, but certainly when we have our students go to a community pharmacy, even though they may have worked in a pharmacy in the past, the preceptors work with you and they try to come up with a plan so that you can spend a little more time experiencing things that you might not have had any exposure to when you were working there as a pharmacy clerk or in a capacity as a pharmacy technician. The other thing that we do as well is that we have our students, if you've worked at a particular pharmacy, for example, say a CVS, that you worked at while maybe you were doing your pre-pharm years, we like to give you an experience pharmacy practice experience in community in a different type of setting. So we have some independent pharmacies and other chains so that you can see how other places do things and get to know other people and start establishing your network.
Thank you, Dr. Lorenz. How long does it take to complete it? And it's a two-part question. Actually, I'll stop after you answer this one. How long does it take to complete IPPEs, either community or hospital?
So the IPPE curriculum is 300 hours. And the way it's split right now is with a little greater number of hours in the community setting. Right now, we typically do 120 hours over the summer. And the following year, we do 80 hours over the do 80 hours over the summer of the following year between the P2 and the P3 year. So that will get you up to the 100 hours. And right now we're also doing the service learning hours, some simulated hours. And so the curriculum basically provides a lot of different types of opportunities, but for most students, it's going to take those full 3 years to complete all of those experiences. We try to have the students complete their service learning, our community outreach types of experiences by the winter of their P3 year.
Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Yam, what about APPEs?
So our APPE rotations are 6 weeks in duration, and there's 7 total during your 4th year that you'll complete.
Thank you, Dr. Lorenz and Dr. Yam. We have another question, and they ask, if students had an emergency, is there a way they can make up their hours, and how does that work?
Well, I'll start with IPPE hours. So yes, if they have an emergency, certainly we work with them. There's things that can happen, and we work with the preceptors and the students, and we come up with a way for them to make up those hours. Again, we're required to have that full 300 hours for all of our students in the IPPE program. But we've certainly worked with people where there've been extenuating circumstances for them to be able to make up time.
And for APPEs, we're also consistent with that policy in that we will work with the student as well as the preceptor to determine first how much time is missed and whether or not that time needs to be made up. We leave that typically at the discretion of the preceptor. In some cases where there where there is a need for taking longer periods of leave, there are opportunities at the end of the year where students can make up a rotation if they had to miss one, for example. That's possible. That's entirely possible, and you can still graduate on time if that's necessary. But in most cases, we work with the student as well as the preceptor to determine what the best course is, and we try to be as flexible and reasonable as we can be with that.
Thank you very much. My next question is, what happens if a student fails either IPPEs or APPEs? And has this ever happened before?
Well, I can speak for APPE, as I mentioned before, that it has happened. It's rare that it does occur, but it can happen. And if that does happen, we work with the student to basically find an alternative rotation. And this will typically occur at the end of the year, academic year, where the student would still be able to walk with their class if they're graduating that year, and they would come back and complete a rotation after walking.
So on the IPPE side, since I've been involved in the program, we haven't had anybody fail the rotation. I don't know if we've ever had anyone in the past, but basically what would happen in that particular case is we obviously would meet with the student and the preceptor, try to identify what the issues and concerns were, and then we would have the student make up that opportunity, typically at a different site.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to my response is that we work very hard with the preceptors to identify students who might be at risk for not successfully completing the rotation. And so at the midpoint, every student is required to complete a midpoint evaluation, and the preceptors are also required to acknowledge and complete a midpoint evaluation. If there's any sign that the student might be at risk for failing a rotation, we work with those preceptors to make sure that there's a good plan in place to help the student succeed. And it's because of that that we haven't had too many issues. And that's why I said it was rare that we do have a student that fails, because we try to identify it as early as possible and we create a plan that allows them to succeed.
Thank you. Another question, and by the way, that's why we love our school so much, and that's one of them. So as a student, where can we seek guidance regarding fee or APPE locations? And this question I probably would have asked as well. Like, if a student's going there all alone, are they alone? Are we close to our faculty? Can we email Dr. Lorenz whenever we want? Any of that will help. Thank you.
So starting with IPPEs, as far as locations for sites and things like that, right now we're in that process for our students that are in the P1 and P2 years. And so we work very closely with one of our coordinators. Her name is Pam McGlynn, in the Office of Experiential Education. And students turn in their interests and where what part of San Diego County will work out best for them for various rotations. And so we try to match our students as best as possible. to the right type of experience. Like I mentioned before, we try to provide some diversity of experience. If you are currently working or have worked in a pharmacy, we try to do in different setting, and the same then as well for the hospital experience. We again want to try to find something that's going to be a good match for you. So we have a established group of partners in most of the major medical centers here in San Diego County, and we work with most of the large chains as well as several of the independent pharmacies for our community rotations.
And on the APPE side, we have a number of resources that are made available to the students, so they know what rotations have been offered in prior years, who our major partners are. We put rotation descriptions up and make that available so students can have a chance to review what the site will be like, what expectations there are, and the objectives for each rotation. We also hold a rotation fair and during the P3 year that allows students to network and chat with preceptors from various sites throughout the county. So there are a number of ways that students can get information about the types of APPE sites that we have. And of course, they can always reach out to our office and ask if they have any questions regarding specific sites, or if they are interested in creating a new site. That's all. We're also here and available for that.
Thank you, Dr. Yam, Dr. Lorenz. I appreciate it. One more question, Dr. Yam, about APPEs. Are students allowed to pick their electives, or is it lottery? Or how does it work?
So good question. So electives, as I mentioned before, the 7 rotations total. Out of the 7 rotations, you'll have 2 electives, and those are selected based on a lottery system. So what students will do is they'll rank their preferences for those rotations, and it will be entered into a lottery process with their classmates. And then once, so it's randomized, but it's based on your preferences.
Thank you, Dr. Yam. We do have one additional question. I believe this is the last one. And students want to know, can they complete any of their APPEs internationally?
Good question. So yes, we have some established partnerships with some international sites, and we are also open to entertaining new international sites. There is a process for students to propose new sites. They at the beginning, or at the end of their P2 year rather, we ask that students submit an interest form if they're interested in doing an international APPE. And that way we can evaluate the site, determine whether or not it will meet objectives and the requirements to become an APPE rotation. And it takes some time to work through the affiliation agreement if it's a new international site. But the short answer is yes, we do allow it, we encourage it, as long as the students are in good standing and have passed all of their rotations. We do allow students to do an international rotation as one of their elective rotations.
Awesome. Thank you. And those were all the questions that we've gotten.
Great.
I really appreciate you and your time and everything. I hope to see you, Dr. Yam, soon in class. Yeah. And Dr. Lorenz, you're awesome. Thank you so much for all that you do for our profession and for our school. Sahar, we can end it, right?
Yeah, we're good. And I just want to thank both Dr. Yam and Dr. Lorenz for being here with us today and sharing information regarding APPEs and IPPEs. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Great job, guys.
Have a wonderful Thursday. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.